Back in 2013, you're exactly right. The long-awaited cholesterol guidelines were released, and it had been almost a decade since the prior guideline had been released. And so this was big news, and it was also pretty controversial because they did some different things. They took a different pathway in that the emphasis was on identify a patient's risk. They de-emphasized the numbers and targets, although there are still some targets and numbers in that 2013 guideline. And they made a strong push for starting statins, particularly for the highest risk patients, intensive high-dose statins, and for those slightly lower risk, moderate statins. But statins were the recommended therapies for the most part. And that was back in 2013 with a de-emphasis of the targets and goal LDL to be achieved. I mean, a lot has happened in the field since 2004. Many new trials, but it was a very things were coming fast and furious. There were newer therapies being introduced, some of which failed, some of which were promising. Some of the trials, like with ezetimibe, took a while to complete because now our patients are living longer and having fewer events. And so there was a push and pull between incorporating all the new information, but waiting until we got all the important things in. And then there was also kind of a change in the methodology with the 2013, which is in part what made it controversial, to focus on randomized clinical trial data and to de-emphasize the numbers. The ACC then released, and it's not an official guideline, but it's more a consensus statement of experts in the field that incorporated the new data since the 2013 guidelines. So we have important developments really in two major areas. One is an outcomes trial with ezetimibe called the Improve It study. I was involved in that. And second were a wealth of data with the PCSK9 inhibitors. So potent new mechanism to reduce LDL profoundly. It's early, so I think many of us, myself included, are just trying to digest the new expert statement that was released a few days ago. But I just came from a session where this was an important part of the discussion, and it seems like people get it, responded favorably, and said, this makes sense, this resonates with how I would practice, and I understand how you incorporated the new data with ezetimibe, which shows a non-statin for the first time, in this case ezetimibe, reduces cardiovascular events on the background of statin therapy. It's a spectrum. I think some physicians already started to change their practice once the Improve It trial results were announced a year and a half ago in November. With the PCSK9 inhibitors, they just became available for clinical use over this past summer. They are expensive, and there's a bit of paperwork to get done to get them made available to your patient, and but I think it's going to move the needle for both of these drugs, and I expect their use to increase. And I think this expert consensus statement gives physicians some more assurances that they're using them properly and in the right patients. And so yeah, I think it'll change practice, but it'll be an evolution. Sometimes those of us who are in clinical trials and in academic medicine, we are criticized because we always say, well, it needs more study. That's how we often end our papers or studies. But the truth of the matter is we are continuing to try to do better. And one very important series of trials will be announced in the upcoming months to years, and those are the cardiovascular outcome studies with the PCSK9 inhibitors. The FOIA trial is scheduled to end first and announce its results, then Odyssey, and then two trials called Aspire 1 and 2 studies, all with PCSK9 inhibitors, all large studies looking at cardiovascular outcomes. So I think that's the next thing to keep your eyes out for.